So in this segment, we're going to be talking about why we shouldn't worry about Labour's embrace of Brexit. Now, I've not necessarily got an issue with the statement, make Brexit work. I know some people in the space do. I know some people say we should rejoin the single market. Again, I've debunked that point, why that simply won't work. But the TTA, the Trade and Cooperation Agreement, does have ways for us to get alignment with the EU on things like agri-foods, which would greatly help. Labour has a lot of problems when it comes to Brexit, especially when you've got different people saying different stuff. You've got this shadow minister saying Labour would seek to rejoin the EU single market. Essentially, she had to say, actually, that's not Labour Party policy. You've got this MP Stella Creasley saying Labour cannot make people's lives better until it dares to start talking about Brexit, something that Phil had a big issue with this article. I didn't. And you've got this one from Rachel Reeves, who is very senior in the Labour Party, saying Labour says it will address the flaws in the Brexit deal. So I'm going to talk about each one of these articles in themselves, but I thought it's important to note that evidently there is still a split within the Labour Party as to what it should do next. So I found this article semi-interesting from Nick Tyrone, the 11th of June. So we'll go through this one on its own first, saying a constant complaint from British pro-Europeans these days is that Keir Starmer isn't anti-Brexit enough, and indeed doesn't in fact appear to be anti-Brexit at all. And in my opinion, if that's your take on it, I'd say that's a fair take. But you have to kind of take into his past that he was a big EU fan, but at the end of the day, what Starmer has calculated is that his pathway to power is not talking about Brexit or not talking about rejoining EU institutions. That's kind of that's what he sees as his path to victory. Whether you think that's right or wrong, that's up to you, but that's where he's going with it. You know, he's going with make Brexit work. This is the slogan the Labour Party have adopted. And it's caused many who remain passionately anti-Brexit on the left, who were pro-Europeans. This sentiment is still as strongly as ever felt, that people genuinely do believe in the EU as a project, to reject Starmer, and for some to say there is no difference between a Tory government and a Labour one in this regard. Now, that's not true, because I don't think a Labour government would actually keep fighting the EU over the protocol. I can't see that happening. Also, the fact that the Labour Party have talked more about alignment deals. So essentially, you got equivalency and alignment. So equivalency is essentially we have similar rules. So SPS is a lot easier to deal with. That's something the Labour Party have talked about in the past, but they don't talk about it anymore for some reason. And alignment is when you have the exact same rules, pretty much, dynamic alignment. So when the EU changes its rules, we change ours to match with each other. For many, this tendency got worse this week when the Shadow Home Secretary, Yvette Cooper, refused to denounce Brexit repeatedly in an interview with Marr. She kept saying that Labour wouldn't take Britain back into the single market. Now, I've spoken about why the UK Labour Party can't do that, take us back into the single market. It's a different video. She said, preferring instead to talk about the tweaks to the current model Labour would make to ease tensions, such as a proposed veterinary agreement. Now, again, I saw people get very angry at her for this video, shouting and stuff. I think it's fine that Labour are talking about a veterinary agreement, just like I don't believe the statement make Brexit work is a bad statement, because evidently Brexit isn't working. The problem is you have to show why the Tory Brexit isn't working and why your one would be different, and that's what Labour aren't doing. The simple slogan make Brexit work is not enough. Nick Tyrone is saying, I'm here to defend Labour's current Brexit policy, not because I believe Starmer is the man to reverse Brexit, because I feel certain he will do two things if he becomes Prime Minister, okay? Surprisingly, you actually think Starmer will do anything, because he hasn't proposed much, apart from a windfall tax the Tories jacked. One, he will almost certainly ameliorate the worst of Brexit just by dint of wanting to be electorally popular, so he'll want to get rid of the Brexit problems just to appeal to the electorate. And two, even if he doesn't intend this, he will inevitably begin unwinding the process of Brexit altogether. Now, I don't have blind faith like that in Starmer, but again, you do you, Nick Tyrone, but I genuinely don't think he will reverse that much of Brexit, because he has limitations, and given that he's so desperate to get the red wall back, I think even if he becomes Prime Minister, he'll always have the belief that, well, if I do seek to get more alignment with the EU, I might lose the red wall. That's kind of my take on it. Before anyone accuses Nick Tyrone of being some kind of Labour partisan that would defend the party regardless, he's voted Lib Dems. He's never voted Labour in his 50 years of living in this world. and he says he mostly voted Lib Dem, but barring something dramatic, he'll vote Labour. And it's really weird. He votes Lib Dem, like unless he lives in a seat where only the Lib Dems could win. Why would you vote Lib Dem for the last 50 years? It doesn't make any sense. Because even though in my heart I wish they could be more visibly against our having left the European Union, he understands that there's politics around it. His Brexit has become an article of religious faith within the Conservative Party. If you doubt me on this, only look at what happened to Tobias Ellwood, where he got slammed by Tom Tugg on his hat and a load of other Tory MPs. Sorry about the noise outside. It was published on a website, Little Read, outside of Westminster Bubble, and they were piling on Elwood over it. Now, I don't think just because he wrote it on Politics Home that means that, just because a website political junkies would go on, it's necessarily a bad thing. But it got shared a lot. That's what happened. Elwood had committed blasphemy, and the church could not allow him from being a sworn-in member. Now, I don't think that's necessarily true. He got maligned for about a week, and they moved on. It's clear that the Tories remain unable to have a serious discussion around Brexit until they're voted out of office. I don't know if that's strictly true, because after Johnson, you might get someone like Tom Tugg on his hat or Jeremy Hunt, who's more pro-European. It depends. They cannot fix the situation they themselves created unless they're chucked out of office and forced to think again. Again, I'm not sure if that's true. I really hope that sound of that machine's not getting picked up too much by the microphone. It should be fine. Apologies for that. Again, you can't help the outside world. Labour are still in a bind on Brexit, one that Remainers have little to no sympathy towards. Again, I don't think that's true either. I think there are some people out there who would say, oh, we have to rejoin the EU no matter what. I'm not going to vote for Labour or the Lib Dems unless they say this as policy. I think the majority of people who want to rejoin the EU understand there has to be pragmatism involved in this. Because if you don't, you're very naive. The Tories want to fight that election along the culture war lines, which is true. They want to be able to say that Labour don't know what a woman is, hate the flag and the country. You know the routine, I do. Brexit will be part of this, for it's become largely a culture war issue, which is true. Again, he wants to bring, they say about Starmer, he wants to bring us back into the single market. He wants unlimited migration from the EU. I'm against that. I want to control our borders. That's what Boris Johnson will say. What the hell does being inside or outside the structures of the European Union have to do with wokeness? Again, that's a good question. I have no idea. The obvious answer is nothing, but that isn't how people feel about it for now, which is also true that people see the EU as, woke, something that liberals love and all this stuff. Well, I'm a conservative. I'm cool. It wasn't that the public desperately wanted Brexit for its own sake. They just wanted it to be over, and it sucked out so much oxygen from the room, right? Probably poor phrasing from me. That that's all people spoke about, and I think people just got sick of it in the end. They didn't want any more parliamentary infighting about it, and definitely did not want a second referendum on the topic. The phrase "Get Brexit Done," the slogan was genius. The positive from a Labour perspective is that with their current position, which basically goes, we will not reverse any major structural aspect of Brexit, we will get rid of the worst parts of Johnson's deal and make things work for the country, they will be putting on the Tories into checkmate. I don't know if that's necessarily true either, if they just argue we're going to make tweaks about it. If they argue that, look, we've got massive queues at the border, massive queues at airports, etc., we're going to work to fix these things because of what Johnson broke, they might have a shot in it. As long as they say we're not going to rejoin the EU single market, we're going to do these things outside because we have trust with the EU rather than the Conservatives who don't. The more the Conservatives go on about Brexit in the next general election campaign in the face of a Labour Party not discussing it much, the more they'll simply be reminding people they didn't get Brexit done. But the thing is, they're happy to keep talking about Brexit. The Northern Ireland Protocol itself is evidence they didn't get Brexit done. So I don't think the argument, trying to use it as some sort of checkmate that, by the Conservatives talking about Brexit, they'll go against their 2019 promise of get Brexit done. I don't think that will work. What terrifies hardcore Brexiteers? Everything about Brexit will seem insane in 10 years' time, so that doesn't help. Starmer doesn't need to win an election from a decade from now. He desperately needs to win the next one, which is true that we have to get the Tories out. That's what has to happen here. And if he does, his government will draw closer to Europe on things like veterinary agreements and tweaks, which is true. That will happen in the end. The problem is, Starmer's dilemma is he has to win back the Red Wall, but he has to win back, pro-EU people within those, some of those areas. And he has to rebuild a broad church here, and I don't think he's the man to do it. The guy's got no charisma, no energy. And he doesn't exude confidence in himself either. That's a key problem. Once Brexit loses its revolutionary zeal, it will be shown to be hollow, which is true that, once once, the idea that we can do Brexit and be some great country again, once that idea dies and people realise how screwed we are, the more it will be easy to talk about how problematic Brexit is and get around it. But may I be bold here, the author, and suggest that it may well be the Conservative Party that takes us back into the single market and perhaps the full EU membership. Let's not forget here that trade liberalisation, these are not left-wing ideas. These are more libertarian / right-wing ideas, getting rid of borders, etc. In a sense, more Labour, more markets is very much an idea of libertarianism, which is more to the right than it is of the left. If that sounds insane, remember we live in an insane world. Don't forget Thatcher's one of the ones who helped create the EU single market. At some point the country will come to its senses on Brexit. I don't know how long that will take. Essentially you're asking for one of two things to happen here. Either a major shift in the way people think, or essentially a major change when it comes to demographics. Changes in demographics take a long time. I know you'd all like things to happen quicker and for Labour to be a catalyst for that, but we are where we are, and Labour winning the next general election is the most important thing by miles if you care about halting the craziness of the last decade. Please, let's all give them the space to do that. But the thing is, right, just because we want the Tories out does not mean Labour are free from criticism. I want the Labour Party to win. Therefore, I criticise them where I think they're weak in certain areas. I swear I'm going to fight the guy who's doing that. I want the Labour Party to win, therefore I need them to do well, therefore I have to criticise them, because if they don't do well, and if they lose, then who else are we going to blame at that point? If the Labour Party think they're onto a winner and they're not, we have to tell them where we think they're wrong. It's up to them whether they want to listen to us or not, but, I'd be a fool if I didn't criticise the Labour Party. I'd be a shill, and that's not me. But anyways, I'm going to leave it there. Just one more thing, to add that it's clear Labour MPs don't believe in Starmer's vision on the whole get Brexit done thing. This is evidence of it. You have a shadow minister, someone in the shadow cabinet, saying Labour would seek to rejoin the EU single market. That's not Labour Party policy, but it's clear the belief within the cabinet is to, at some point, try and get closer alignment with the EU. You got this point here from a backbencher saying the same thing. So evidently the Labour Party do need to figure out something on Brexit, because Brexit is still a thing which it still tears up the Labour Party. It's clear that there are still a lot of pro-EU people within the Labour Party, and therefore Starmer needs to kind of somehow balance those pro-EU people with the Red Wall, and I don't know how he does that. I don't understand how he's going to square the circle. But anyways, I'm going to leave it there. Let me know what you think in the comments below. Like, comment, share, subscribe. Support the channel on Patreon if you can, and hopefully I'll see you in the next one.